Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And this is a Venus video with Mars conjuncting Rahu. It's been a very hot day today for Saturday. Um, and now the temperatures are a bit lower here in the desert where I live, and I'm like so happy. So I decided to go down and lie on some soil. It is all up for you. So, I was wondering what will be my Venuranus other than like the song I was recording yesterday. And today I got to a video, and her main channel is The Privileged Few. And this is a 26 years old woman who is, um, her parents went through financial crisis in Ukraine before the war. And then she I think she studied in the US, and she wants to make a bridge between people who have wealth and have income, and one of her videos, she was giving advice to women. And as an astrologer, especially around the Venuranus, I was like, there's something very refreshing here, but there's also something um, that I think about from my point as astrologer and from my point as raising awareness to decultifying our industries, our wealth, so that we can gain health and well-being. So let's begin with her words. And one of her words for women when dating was she grew up in family where the mother had a lot of people to help her with cooking, with raising the children. And so the mother got to enjoy life and to do things she liked, which funnily enough was cooking for her husband, and out of joy, like not because she was obligated to, and gardening and stuff like that. And she got to spend the time with the children. So she was in charge of the children, her husband was in charge of the money. And that is how they were raised. And she wanted to provide, the girl wanted to provide her own children the same wealth she was provided by her dad, and they are new money. So the dad was poor, and he managed to work and gain money, and so he was spreading the wealth to the family. And of course, she gets a lot of like criticism. You're a rich kid, da 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 da. But it's also very, curious to hear about people coming from a different background and different social styles to yourself. And one of the advices she gives people is, first of all, don't expect your men to change, which is, yes, people change, but you want to grow if you want to grow like children, so your children, not your men. Okay? So this was something that familiar. Um, and another thing was that to have prenuptial, because if you have expectation that you don't want to work for a certain amount of years after your pregnancy and just be a mom, then you want that to be discussed and money to be discussed. I think it's so true for people to understand what they want to do financial wise, because after marriage, astrologically, you enter the eighth house. Marriage is seventh house, and then it's the eighth house, is the house of where your ancestral lineage are affecting you, and that could be the education. But one of the big things is money. What inheritances do you have? What are your expectations? This is also particularly true if you are not only monogamous but also non-monogamous. What are your expectations? Non-monogamous people, they have many times, the partner who is not raising the children with another will be very contributing to the relationship where they do grow the children, and relationships contribute each other. So people do want to talk about these things, absolutely. Um, and uh, and what I was thinking about, what she was describing her life and her desired life as a woman, as her mother's life, was this experience where the man is providing, and he should be providing for at least, several years when they get like pregnant. She wants to be able to work, but not like to have to work. This is, it's important to set these expectations if you have them. Also very realistic about how much money, because she grew up with wealth, she knows how much money her parents spent on her day-to-day activities, on private schooling, on networking. So sometimes you have to have the correct car and the correct branding and the correct spa that you go to, because you are a part of a group that later, when you need these people, let's say your child wants to get to university, or you want to get a certain job, or somebody to, help you out in certain ways, or to have children wed or something, then you want to have a certain type of belonging and network. I guess it's the equivalent of tribe. So people, when they talk about the tribe, people want to have their own tribe. And as an astrologer, my contribution to this discourse would be that when we have Uranus transits to our chart, and I talk about this a lot, I have Venus in a hidden harmonious aspect to Uranus. Is one of the strongest parts of my chart, so I'm able to understand unusual type of commitment styles, or how people relate, and I'm able to be very realistic about the passage of life. So when people have Uranus transits, what it means, for those of you who don't know astrology, it means that you at this time of your life have a need to express a part of you that you haven't been expressing. And this is where, men get to buy the sport car, or suddenly want to go on a trip. This is also when people have many affairs. And as relationship astrologer, I think anybody who is relationship astrologer, they know this about Uranus. Because the point is not the affair, the point is that there's a part of you that's willing to express yourself. You've made certain concessions with yourself, and your relational life is a part of what's reflecting that. And so, and many times the affair would not necessarily be about the other person, but about your creative side that is wanting to come out. Okay, even very much like astrology. Okay, sometimes people actually become astrologers. Lada Duncheva, in her third marriage, she on an eclipse and her husband were met, and she became a world-renowned astrologer. And her husband was very supportive, so she needed the husband that's supportive of her life mission. And if you look at Jupiter, is for women like the spouse, for cisgender who look for men, but I think it's flexible amongst gender as well. Then to improve upon your Jupiter, you basically grow your own worldview. But it's not only that. For men who escape narcissistic women really, that did not treat them well, one of the great advices is to grow your own philosophy of life and morality and stick by it. Wow, I didn't know that, okay? Because traditionally Jupiter's philosophy of life and worldview is for women. You need to grow your own worldview so you improve upon your Jupiter, and you know that, for example, let's say you're a Christian. So you say, oh, my husband, he needs to have this place for God, or God is more important, or God will give me my partner. Or you're tribal, so let's say Sedna, I know, is used for worshipping. It's not used as we worship Sedna. I know people also worship Sedna to have the right partner. So you have your own worldview, and when you have a standard, this already sets you in with a standard, where the standard is not based around commerce like Venus. Okay. For Venus, I have Saturn opposition Venus, so it's less my problem. But for Venus, Pluto hard aspects like mine, there are a lot of people who, if they are violated or something like this, they go to the other venue of trading in sexuality, not from a place of like being sex work is work, but from a place that is unhealthy. And for them, the only way to have like the self-value is just like, oh, it's cost so and so to have time with me. Okay, So better to grow your Jupiter, because your Jupiter will give you this value, and work on Venus with being receptive to love. This is how I work with these two planets. Um, and so um, when we talk about these things, we understand that your current relation is a reflection of that Jupiter, that Venus. And right now, both Jupiter and Venus are in Taurus. And so this is where, at a certain Uranus transit in your life, something wants to come out, some hidden talent that you have. For example, for me, when I was going through the Saturn square Uranus, Saturn was in my 12th house, and I had to come to terms with the fact that, for example, unlike this woman who runs this privileged view, I had privileges, but because I have standards that around corruption, then I lost a lot of these privileges, and so I had to use of my wisdom, of my worldview, to survive in life. Um, and at the time, Uranus was squaring Saturn, and I had to come to terms with how supposedly my mental crisis is connected to, like, the financial crisis, and so on. And with Uranus, I eventually changed my residence and began to grow a garden, which I thought would not be possible for me. So I'm broadcasting from this very soil. It's not my property yet, but is something that was very important for my life. And I had a 10-year-long friendship that had to end because I was beginning to delve into astrological magic that was taboo, and owned my energy in a different way. And it was time, yes, it was friendship, to grow into my own separate dwelling and to grow garden. So this is something that Uranus brought into my life. And when you have, let's say, marriage or relationship, I want you to understand, both as men and as women, that also financially you want to prepare for when your partner is going to have, and you're going to have, these Uranus transits. So people think usually about, cheating and stuff like that, but it's also financial, because like what Albina said, is very important when you have wealth. The wealth is for you to try things and to be able to afford to fail in them. Okay, so to try a new business, or to try this or to try that, and to have these accumulated life experiences, they are more important sometimes, because sometimes it's not you failed, but it's like, oh, this is for me, this is not for me. It's important to have these life experiences. And it's the richness of life, and it's also important for our partners to have that, and it takes money, and lots of money. Okay, just for example, to not be able to work, then I have privilege that I have soil, that I can work here, that I have my oils that I made, kind of batches for me to use. This was my Venus, Invisible Venus body butter. It was my first experience with making a huge batch of, like, body butter of astrological infused energies, and just to be able to try these things for sometimes more important, and even to make sure I have enough for food. Okay, for you to have your privileges cost money. It costs money, and I tell you, I'm privileged a lot, but also I make choices with the limited allowance or budgets that I have. And sometimes it means I say, okay, food less, because I do want to try this thing. And then, of course, it impairs on my health. So to not have this wealth, to not have this money, to not budget for this, separate and to say, oh, my partner will have to provide for me at these times. When he has Uranus transits, or when she has Uranus transit, because there are a lot of stay-at-home dads have been seeing this trend of stay-at-home dads, which I think is also beautiful. Men deserve the time to rest, and if they like, growing the children and doing that, I think is beautiful. And many women own their success to men, and even me, when I was doing my Me Too, I've had the support of my ex-bestie. Okay, what later happened, what this, what that is, but I also am appreciative and very, very grateful that I had this at the time, because I could afford to do things and to say things and to get out of a working relation, not even knowing how much time healing I would need and what would it affect my life, and is a lot of support, both emotionally, but it's also important, when we succeed as women, then usually somebody is backing it up, okay? And this is something that, yes, is important to have. And when you don't have the ability to have both food, good food, to take care of, to take care even of your aesthetics, or to go to the salon, to do your nails, or to have, reflexology or whatever. When you don't have this, then you still make the good decisions, but they come on account of something that you actually need. And so the sense of having is yes, is more growth is needed. Yes, it's posing challenge, and you want to be able to budget for this when you think about long-term relationship. I want you to understand. So Uranus transits, it can be not only midlife crisis. Uranus opposition at around your 40s. This is where it's not about gender. Everybody has this. This is where people might cheat if they are not on alignment with their life creation. It's a Kundalini energy. It's a big rise of energy that makes you into your next step. It takes you into your next step. Okay, and it happens, and as astrologers, it's not just this transit, but also the Uranus square for you younger with your 20s. And this is why they said the 20s is still a teenage, because this is where Uranus square kicks in. I had a very, very, very difficult Uranus square, but I did meet some veterans. I remember when I was fighting on YouTube, and actually a war veteran, was connected with my writing, and he felt relation to me. And I didn't understand this at all, because although I live in Israel, I was exempt from army, did not go to army. And so I learned about this would be a part of what I would do in life for decades, to be both receiving help and helping people who are dealing with health crisis. And that was not professionally, it was just something that I did. I didn't get money for, and I learned by this stuff that even therapists don't always know, because I learned the field that they learn academics, and then they learn the people who have money to pay them usually, or the public service where they're otherwise indoctrinated, but they don't get to hear it from the patient point of view so much, because there's always this bias that you wouldn't say everything, and is limiting actually the research, even in the best of, even without corruption, is difficult. So that was something that happened during that years. But I was also introduced to astrology, and it was then that I would begin to do composite charts. That was and look at relational charts first, just like how not to fall into. And I don't remember the chart I have with that person that triggered all of these things, but I remember I used the word trigger. Before everybody used trigger, I was like, you're like trigger. I told her. So yes, I have some ancestors European, and there was person who was European, so communication is very direct for the pros and cons of that and cons of that. But I do remember this transit introduced me to astrology later, and I think the chart, the composite, was with hard Uranus aspect. So I was in hard Uranus aspect, and then was hard Uranus aspect, and I also learned that there you feel the energy you feel around person. So he had a lot of energy, but it was too much energy, and so people around us say you have same energy, so it's not so good because but it was needed for me to get the fuck out of my rut, because it was, but it was also too much. And so at the time I would travel with my parents, because I wanted to travel. It's not just about will we move here, will we move there, but just travel to actually enjoy traveling. It was unforgettable, but it was also unforgettable because it was very difficult. A lot of memories, emotional memories, were present for many, many years. And so this was one Uranus transit, okay? When I was forced to think about relationships, because I was a writer, I would think about characters. And this person, they thought about relationships all the time. So that changed my worldview. And eventually, look, the first money I met was from relationship astrology, was completely different when I was writing. So you look at the character and the psychology. And of course, the more character is interesting, I'm second generation to writing. So there was also notions about love, about relations that were limiting, because you fall in love with characters, and those characters are not always able to bring you a safe relation. And to make this change would be something that I would do when Uranus would cross my Mercury and later my Venus. And then I had a relationship coach. She said, you have to fall in love with a man that brings relation. If you want relation, not with a man who's interesting or this or that. Okay, it can be good conversation. And mind you, it was not even about sexuality in that sense, because I couldn't have sex with him. Actually, that was the point. The experience for me was like rape. He did not honor my boundaries, but I think he didn't get it even. So that was Uranus transit. So this was hard aspect Uranus transit. But Uranus, again, Uranus to my Mercury was when I learned more about, it's the ruler of my seventh, about relations. Okay, so fall in love with someone who brings relations. You want to have good relations, you want to be happy. Uranus to my Venus, another changing of the perception, but Jupiter was invisible also then, and so not good for starting relations. And so when you have those, it means that you change your whole worldview and you create something new. Yeah, Baba. The Saturn that I created during Me Too, when Uranus and Aries were square Pluto and around my Mercury, would grow later to be Flying Bombardier, that I would write under fire. And I cannot tell too much about this for safety of people, but yes. And the Venus Uranus and later Venus Sun. So Venus Uranus, I don't remember so much. There were a lot of changes I was going, but also about herbalism, and I think it was from then to Uranus to my Sun that a lot of things to do about like growing a garden and herbalism and the kind of essential oils started to kick in. So those things cost money. Okay, I had one time. It was very funny because my bestie gave me a big sum to buy essential oils, so it would be at home that I could kick in my business. And then I made him a couple of blends, and then my teacher told me, yes, those 3 blends that you made him is the money that he gave you. And I was like, oh my god. is so expensive. Also for my patients, it would be so expensive. I would need to think about how I bring this message, even for people who can't afford the oils. So those Uranus transits cost money, and if you want to sign prenuptial, you want to budget for this money, because I think it's even good for you to have consultation with astrologer, because this is important for your life. I want you to think about this as budget starting a business that you don't know if it will last every Uranus transit. Because if you think about relationship as a budget, and if you think, even if you or your partner cheats, it's not about the money that you have to pay or lawsuits or that. Yeah, you budget for this if you want to, but what I think about is more like, it's not about the cheating is not about the other person, or you didn't give him sex, or you didn't this, or you didn't that. Yeah, it seems like this, but essentially when people go to the deep down under, there's a certain aspect of themselves they were not expressing. If you listened to my song yesterday, for the 7-minute song, in this economy, I think a lot can be expressed there, because it's through sexuality basically that those truths came about. Why difficult for me to date? Why difficult for me to be sexual? Why difficult for me to, I don't know, to take care of my body, to take care of this? Enough with the cult. Everywhere you go with this cult, enough with this. You go to work, you go to date, you go to this, you go to study, you go to, enough with the cult. So it came out like, poof, kicking off the cult. And this is Uranus. This is the Venuranus, okay? It's the enough with this, and there is a spark of life, a Kundalini rise. That's just felt, and with this Kundalini rise is also you break through a lot of the challenges, the patterns of thoughts, societal patterns. Is very strong Uranus. You want to budget for this. You want to be able to do for your husband, for example, if he works in corrupted business, or if he's part of the cult, Uranus transit, no, he can't do it anymore. It breaks through. You, your children, your money, your pregnancy. Oh my God. I just think about people who have just finished their very exact and accurate Uranus transit. Some of them became parents. If you are already astrologer, there's some remediation, but it's always a lot of things are like, poof. And the things that came up in this transit, oh my God. So this is a time in your life where a lot of money is going to go, even by the merit of you're not able to make that money now. Okay? Uranus is the unusual way. You want to budget for this. So you also want to know when your partner, man or woman, would not be able to stand in the prenuptial. Legally binded, not legally binded. Uranus and Saturn are two different planets. Okay, when Uranus was square Saturn, it was very felt. I remember I was in between houses, and I came with a lot of privilege. I had the most desired passports, education, and I was learning aromatherapy, and I knew astrology. Okay, I was sitting in a hospital that was a little bit far from my shelter, and I was channeling to people, and I was making money that I couldn't use because it was in another country. And I made more money than now. I'm not. Yes, no, it's okay to say this. I don't make any new money. And I also look at the economy. Okay, what are they going to do with this? What alternatives will we need to do with that? Because you can make a lot of money, and then they change the coin. You have no money. That's what they plan to do right now. So we're in changing times. So we get both these exciting communications of like people where they had a lot of money, and then a little bit of financial crisis, and then the war, and so you get to speak with people and hear people you didn't get to speak with, and you would get a chance to get to know. um, and it's both ways. Yes, as money is important to have life experiences, but learning is also important. And the people who don't have money have learning because they are aware of what money is needed in their life. But I also, in my path, was aware of where the accumulation of money um, is there were a lot of things that are to do with that. Okay, there's a lot of you know, the wealth that is bringing you well-being is ancestral teaching that I have from my mama, who would always said she wants the money that brings well-being. Always said that it's not just the money, it's the money that brings well-being. It's coming with good intent, um, and that's the money. Yes. So most of our wealth, especially the commoners, because our investments are obligated savings, are compounded through ways that are not so benefic for humanity. So things come crashing down. Even tending to it opens revenues, is inviting for opportunities that are more ethical, that are better, yes, for you for now. Um, and so, if you planned both as man as woman right now to be a stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home mom, um, it's important for you to also budget for when your partner would not be able to work. Uh, Even for the best of reasons, okay? They have this Uranus transit, and it's not about them leaving you, although it can happen. If you didn't, I think if you didn't plan for this, then it's more chances that it would be even bigger crisis, because if you understand that this is coming, you already understand that Uranus is where you can expect the unexpected. You already understand that money is going to fly out the window and you're going to try new things. You already understand that it's a heightened sexual energy, and you're having unexpected types of attractions to people who can offer you different and very rich life experiences. Okay? And rich life experience is something that is all these people, both new money, old money, they are all after this, is rich life experiences. And this is important. And yes, you want to budget for this. You want to understand that you don't want to wait for a war. You don't want to wait for a crisis. You don't want to wait for somebody cheating with somebody. You want to set the tone, especially now when Uranus is going to cross over Sedna. A lot of people are going to feel betrayed, but underneath is a greater respect that is required. So types of respect we weren't requiring, we will be starting to require. Okay, for me, let's say Uranus Venus was when a lot of people began to speak to their vaginas. Okay, and that kind of like, oh, let's try this, let's try that. Um, and that would change the course of their careers, of what they choose to do. It's another form of intelligence that enters the life. A lot of women understood, for example, that their yeast is not about their hygiene or nutrition only, but also the willing consent with the partner. And a lot of men understood that their supposed erectile dysfunction is either that they were indoctrinated some things about women that caused them to not be good performance with women. If you cannot really relate to a woman and connect with her, then your penis strikes. Okay, it's normal. But also of when you are in connection, then is actually attunement, where sometimes if you talk to the partner, you see, oh, she was thinking about something else, and then poof. Ceasefire. So and that is it also something that Uranus discovers rich life experiences that eventually you say money can't buy, but when you think about making plans, making prenuptial And Venus is also assets. So making long-term plans for your relation, you want to budget for this because it is so much money. Just like to raise kids is so much money for them to have life experiences. Also, the partner who provides for you needs these rich life experiences, and they are going to need to budget for them to be able to try something and fail at that too. And you know, a lot of people say there's a problem in general in wealth that is very cult trapped, and I hope that in the coming decades there will be great opportunities to decultify wealth. That's why I say get out of the lodges before November 19, because you know, it's a time where there is persecution around that. So one of the things that even a person who grew up to a miner's family, that is Elon Musk, for example, he grew up to a miner's family, okay? Yes, he did go to work to wash dishes, to wash this, to experience how to be in life. It's different when your family can support you, but he also, I don't know if he was a Sarite or not, I said outright, he's testified that he had not easy upbringing emotionally, um, and it was taken many times until he had like PayPal, not to mention Starlink. Everybody was criticizing X. Oh, Twitter is down, Twitter is this. I see now they're beginning, especially with the Venuranus, to beginning to change some things. A lot is needed to change, but it's also important to decultify the wealth system so people can get a chance to actually connect. And you see, the thirst for connection is existing. Um, so even when you have all the privileges, is still budgeting for a lot for you to make kind of like your own money. Even, for example, Donald Trump, he inherited a lot of wealth. He lost more wealth than he made, and he's quite rich. And so, of course, if you want to decultify and to have, no corruption around the world, it takes a lot more innovativeness, and it takes a different mindset to understand that we are entitled to way more than we think. And in general in society, the tribal societies, well, to make place for these changes, um, I think is a good thing to ponder upon during this Venuranus, when Venus is still applying to trine Pluto. Yes, she's applying to trine Pluto. So it's a wonderful time to think about wealth and building wealth that accommodates for this Uranus transit, that accommodates for social changes, not by sacrifice,